Hi, Sharon.
Hi.
So, where I want to start today is some of these songs on the new record that you've been with for quite a while, the band has been with for quite a while. Well, what are the feelings finally being able to release them as a full, cohesive kind of body of work?
Well, for us it's nice to have a final thing that called an album, of course, to have like a compact thing that ends a certain era that you have been working on. And in the beginning, strangely enough, we didn't even think of releasing a full-length album, but maybe just do only singles, because it's the first time that we are without a record company, and we still were trying to figure out, with also because of COVID and everything, what to do. Are we just going to release singles now, or because we didn't know how long it's going to take and everything. It took a whole different turn than we actually had in mind. First of all, we were actually supposed to release with a company that said, well, we can't release it the way you want to do it, so what are we going to do? And we said, okay, let's part ways. And so everything turned out differently than we had in our
Okay.
minds. But I'm really happy how it did turn out, though.
Were you anxious with all the uncertainty, or was it kind of almost liberating in a way?
It was both, actually. It was
Okay.
liberating because we could decide at any time to do it differently than we had decided before.
Right.
And because, like I said, we weren't supposed to release an album, and then finally we did do that, and which I'm very happy about. But so we could come back to that decision. But on the other hand, it was also like, and we could do it any way we wanted to, and we did. But on the other hand, it's also more work because you have to hire a team that's going to promote your album and stuff like that, things you can't do yourself. And that is, of course, a lot of thought goes into it, and time goes into that. So that's something new for us. And but also you get a bit better and completer picture of how things work, and that's nice as well.
Yeah, and one thing I seem to remember reading is that when you talked about releasing these singles in the previous years, the approach to those songs was then different because they were singles, and the approach is always, okay, has to be a banger. So can you kind of describe how you went into you and the band went into kind of the development of those songs and those choruses and making them kind of feel like singles and that big sound?
Well, it was more like how it started initially was that we were supposed to go on tour with Evanescence, and it got postponed many times. And before it was postponed, we already decided that we wanted to have some singles because our album was already out for 1.5 years, and we had been promoting it everywhere. So we played every festival, every venue mostly, and then going on tour again with Evanescence. I was like, okay, this is not smart. We need to have something new to promote as well, and to play something new for everyone because they already seen us. Can't play the same set list.
Sure.
And so we wrote some new songs, and there were some bangers on it. It's like, okay, this is pretty cool. What are we going to do with it? Well, Rituals was actually written before, even before this album, with Resist, during Resist. And we didn't wanted to put that on the album at that time because it wasn't mature enough. It needed time to mature in a way. And but before the whole COVID started, we had like 4 songs that we really liked, and we released all of them because all were very powerful in a way. And so that was not like we were thinking of it needs to be a single, more like these songs are really, really cool. If they're not cool enough or not, it needs to come naturally. It's not like we're going to write this kind of chorus or it needs to be like this big sound wise, or it wasn't like that. It's more like it's a banger or it's not a banger. And if we don't have a banger, we have to continue writing.
Fair enough. But what I find interesting then, I went through the album today, and there is a sense of urgency, I would say, in the songs. I think only Wireless, it takes a little bit to kind of, it has somewhat of an intro, but the rest just kind of starts immediately. It starts with a bang. So do you feel that sense of urgency yourself as well?
I don't think we were thinking of it while writing it, but the urgency is maybe because of the topics that you feel like you want to come to the point immediately. Maybe it's psychologically driven. I don't know. So maybe that's the reason, but no, not really. no, not with a thought like, okay, we need to make a song like really with a certain urgent because other people will, swipe on to the next song. No, that wasn't the thought or something.
No, I found that interesting that all of the songs kind of got to the point very quickly, and as you mentioned, there are some very important and difficult subjects that you deal with on the album. I see kind of two parts, and then Ritual to me is kind of like the outlier. But the last 4 or 5 songs are more or less more introspective, I would say, or more on a personal level. And the first 4 or 5 are more looking out at the world and everything that's going on. Were they written?
I totally agree with you. That's totally correct what you're saying. The first few songs are more about politics and things going on, big things going on in the world that we need to address for ourselves, to deal with that, and also to keep certain subjects alive. And the last few songs are more about personal stuff and more society-driven subjects.
Is it difficult, especially with those first 5 songs, looking at the world and everything that's going on, and now in the last few days there's another the world is going crazy again, it seems. So is that disheartening? And whenever you write about these things, how do you feel? Does it help kind of writing about these things a little bit?
Yeah, it is the way why we're writing it in the first place, is to deal with our own frustration and dealing with pain that you see in stories that you read about people. It becomes much closer to you when you read personal stories about people who really were there and who are in a certain situation, or a war, or a regime that is oppressing, or so. And that's and then immediately stories are starting to grow in your head, and also the music starts coming, and all of a sudden there's a song there, and it's about that. Although it wasn't like we wanted to write a song about Masa Amini and that whole situation of the women being and their whole generation, not just women but also men, being oppressed in Iran. But it just came out that way, and that's the same with Ukraine. It just came out that way.
Yeah, because one thing I noticed, and usually when politics are involved, it doesn't sound like you're telling people what to think. It's more of an observation. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I totally agree, because, well, an observation to a certain degree. But I think what we are is like bards. Much hasn't changed. We just see a lot happening in the world, and we just tell about those stories, that what's happening. We're just observing and giving it a certain emotion, and also a certain direction also. Hoping that people will start thinking maybe a little bit, not that we think we can do that as a band, but more like to keep the subject alive and to keep that thought going in people's mind, like, am I actually correct the way I'm approaching the subject? And hopefully that people have an open mind about the subject instead of just thinking in black and white, because things are never like that.
But this is, I think, an interesting topic, because you've never shied away from looking at the world or having some political lyrics in your work. And I remember, I'm a big sports fan, and there was a time when athletes got involved with more of the things going on in the world, and there was a lot of backlash. And have you felt that? Because everybody was saying, well, you're just a sports person, just dribble a ball and shut up, kind of, basically. Do you feel was something similar said to you in the music?
Yeah, a lot of people said just shut up and sing, shut up and play, we're not interested in your view. But I think that is what music is about. It's about thoughts, it's about philosophy, it's about so many things, and especially the big topics in the world, because that inspires us. And I think anything that inspires you is your right to talk about. And that's the difference also with living in a democracy. I can say whatever I want to say within certain limits, of course, but I am free to do so. And that's the difference, instead of living in Iran or Russia or whatever. I would have been,
Sure.
I would have been in danger by now, and of course it's not without danger saying these things, because people can react really heavily, and we have noticed that as well. But when you write about it and you have a certain feeling towards it, we have played so many times in both countries, like Ukraine and Russia, and we
Right.
met a lot of beautiful people and had a great time in both countries. But the fact that for us it was so clear that Russia is the aggressor here, and felt so sorry for a sovereign country like Ukraine to be attacked like that. And it just made no sense to us, and we were very much in shock about it, because we never thought that after the Second World War we would ever see a war like this with this magnitude, because of course there are more wars going on. We had Sarajevo, of course, but it's not like a superpower like Russia. That's a whole different ball game. It's very dangerous, and I think it doesn't stop with the Ukraine, and I don't think we need another country that's going to be oppressed. We need more democracy everywhere, I think, and thinking of that, hoping that we can support them until the end, because it will only turn worse for everyone if there's more countries like Russia who are oppressing their population, and especially so close to home, because that's 2.5-hour flight from our own airport.
Sure.
It's just the same distance as Barcelona for us, so it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, I agree completely. I was very naive. I thought a war like this wouldn't be possible in kind of the time that we're living in. I was very naive in that. When you travel the world then, because you do see a lot of the world, and you get to see look in these people's eyes, and I saw underneath bleed out comments from women out of Iran who were so happy that somebody kind of voiced what they were thinking. What is it like visiting? You kind of alluded to it already, but going to these places, and you've traveled as when you were younger, you lived in different countries as well, and seeing these different perspectives, is that important to kind of how you operate?
Well, you do get more of an emotion with a certain country when you've been there, you met people, because that's what makes my image of a certain country more complete and more colorful, is because I met people that were really, well, I hadn't, it's not just playing there. You meet people. Sometimes when you leave a venue and you start talking to people. I build up relations because of that also. It's not like just that I know what their background is, what their problems are. They talk more easy to than maybe somebody else.
Sure.
And through the years, I've just followed people also, because they just became not real friends, but more like you felt connected to them and talked. And every time when you do see them, say, "Hey, I know your name, and I know, how are you doing? How did this turn out and everything?" And that's how it goes. And you're always when you're traveling, you're with a compact group most of the time, 30 people at the most, and then it's nice to talk to someone else who you're not on a daily basis with. So it's nice to communicate with people, and then you get like I said, a more colorful picture of a little bit about what's happening in a certain country, because you talk about politics, about daily life, but all kinds of stuff. But not only that, like you said, I also lived in certain countries, and I saw a lot of countries when I was very young. Even lived in Yemen, which is of course. So it's I know the culture. I know, it's for me a very vivid kind of memories that I have about it and the people, and so it's for me, more personal sometimes also.
And finally, about those first couple of songs, then I don't know. I assume all songs are written in different ways, but did the music turn out heavier because of the subject matter?
I think it's a combination of music that we're listening to nowadays ourselves, but it's also maybe something you need, because you need that, that break, this emotion to get it out of your system, and then it's maybe listening to more heavy music, but also wanting to write more heavy music, because indeed the topics are heavier. It suits the music and suits the subjects, and I think it always searches for each other when you're starting to write about certain subjects by accident.
Yeah, and I think it balances well with the tone of your voice as well, that you can have those dynamics and kind of go soft and then all of a sudden explode again.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, we've just we even went lower than we ever. With new technology that nowadays you can do so many more things than we were able to, like when we started. So my voice was always a problem with writing songs, because I have a certain range which is quite big actually, but still, if you want to sound in a certain way still cool, you have to stop at a certain range to keep it cool. And then it's like, now there's new technology, we can even down tune even lower, so my voice can go a little bit more up again without losing strength, but even more ethereal in a way that we used to have. And then now, for me, this is the perfect frequency that they say to be on.
But I always find this fascinating, and I asked Floor Jansen a similar thing, where from the outside it looks like, okay, these people are perfect singers. They can sing anything and it will sound good. But is it something you really have to work at still? You try to figure out new techniques and things, or?
Well, sometimes we're stuck, because I'm not the only one who writes music. I'm sure. Sometimes write a song and they sing on it, and it's like, yeah, boys, with all due respect, I can't sing this. So we have to find the right tonality to match my voice to. And that's a lot of times when I'm one of the writing persons in the room, then it goes differently, because we immediately have the right tone. I make up the melody lines most of the time, and then it's different. But when somebody else makes a melody line for me, it's like, oh my God, I don't know how I'm going to sing this, because it's, for a man, such a different tonality. We have to figure out how we're going to do that. And sometimes it works, and a lot of times we have to throw out really good ideas, because I can't sing. It's like there is a limit to there is a difference between men and women, how we sound and how we sing. And so it is like a puzzle sometimes.
Do you like that process? And then this goes into the whole musical production process as well. But do you like kind of tinkering with all those little sounds and kind of figuring out, like, I can't remember what it was, but there was, those cellos and Shed My Skin. There's all these textures all over. Are you very involved in that?
Sometimes, and sometimes I'm a little bit less. It depends a little bit how, it's different with every song. But I do like it. Like, for instance, with Rituals, I really wanted to have the bass as a basis, like a boom boom, that he was being alone. It was those kind of, sometimes you have a certain vision about a song, and then I go for it. But there's sometimes also, we have so many people in the band that really have a good taste, and we all come up with ideas. So it's sometimes another person just that comes up with a good idea, and then we go with that, of course.
That's very lucky to have so many people that have input, because that makes everyone's job a lot easier, I assume.
Yeah, and we don't have egos, which is also a lot of that's something we had to get rid of throughout the years, though. I must be honest about that. But nowadays there are hardly any egos, or no egos at all. Yeah.
I find that interesting. How did you, just you personally, you can't talk for the rest of the people in the band, but how did you get out of your own mind in that way, kind of to get out of your own ego, in a sense? Because it must be strange, right? Everywhere you go on stage and people are applauding you, and all that circus that goes along with what you do. So it must be strange, right?
So you mean you mean the ego in a way that if people constantly applaud you?
Well, because you have to balance those two things, right? You go on stage and everybody's shouting your name and everything, and then you're in a studio. Oh, go ahead.
I totally agree with you. 100% with you, because I see, I think, like any person in life, if it's a child or a grown-up person, if you're always being applauded for, you're going to be a really, really, narcissistic kind of person, to my opinion. And I think also people who never get a compliment, or always put down, they will be very, that's the saddest thing on earth, to my opinion. I think that's even more sad than people who become narcissists in the end. But you have those too. So it's more for me like, I think I'm from a very sober background, meaning like my father was like a very Dutch attitude. You know what I mean? It's like, don't
stoic and.
Yeah, don't be crazy or crazy enough. It's things like that. Don't try to be I don't know, which I think also is not a good attitude at all towards children as well, because I think if you have a talent, why not show it, but on the other hand, it depends. But what they always want to say is like, okay, be modest with it. And that I understand. And I think that's maybe in my DNA. And that's what keeps me grounded, but also family life helps me not getting into my head too much, like that applause is addictive. It's also you create a bubble sometimes also, because everything on tour is being done for you, the laundry until the dinner. You don't have to do anything, just sing. And of course you have to, it's of course not an easy task either, but it's fun. It's like I get to do the fun stuff, and people make my dinner, and then the trash is being put out by someone else. And so I love what I do, but I do realize that it's a group effort, and everybody's part of that group, and that's how we do see it as a band.
Oh, that's very great to hear. And I think this is a good kind of bridge to the 4 or 5 later songs, where it's more about the, I would say, mental health. It's more about being kind to yourself, to be powerful and stick to your guns in a way, to keep going for what you believe in. Where did all of that come from? Because I can imagine these 5 songs were written at a different time than the other ones.
Yeah, the ones like Entertain You and The Purge and Shed My Skin were actually done or written during Corona time.
Okay.
And they are more about the social subjects. Like I had to write an essay for Kerrang magazine, I think it was, during Corona. It was about, they asked me for International Women's Day to write an essay, and they say, well, you can take any subject you want. And I thought, well, it's for Women's Day, so why not talk about something that matters to us women, and what are our rights about that? What are our rights? And that was about abortion. And so I was really I read a lot of articles about that, and I wrote an essay about it, like, okay, I think it's really important for the individual to make their own choice, because it has so much impact on their life eventually. And, what you see is like that in certain countries, laws are being changed, especially in Poland, for instance, at the moment, but also in America.
They took a big step backwards there.
Yeah, it's a big, for us here in the West, it is, but they see it completely different. It's like such a 180 degrees different way of looking at the subject, and I think it starts with voting. It starts with who do you vote for, what kind of party, and they make the laws eventually. So, and I realized all of those kind of things, and felt like a lot of the subjects that we were writing at the time about those 5 songs, 4 songs, it was about indirectly those laws having impact on certain people, like how we treat people and how we tell them how to live their lives. And that was very inspirational to write about, although I got a lot of shit for it as well.
Okay.
Again, because a lot of people were against it, and I understand it also, that people have a different view. And what I was hoping for is to have empathy for the person who is in that situation, and how can you say that to that person, you cannot have an abortion because I believe in God, or I believe whatever that person believes. I think that person already has a trouble making a decision, and then when she decides to do it, then she probably has thought about it. It's not like a small decision for anyone. And so, and I think people who are not religious will never tell a religious person you can have an abortion, or you cannot have an abortion. We won't tell them anything to do or not to do, and they think that's the biggest difference. But I'm sorry, I'm drifting off because
no, that's perfect.
But for me, it was an inspiration for Don't Pray For Me, but also like Shed My Skin. Like, you have to take a stand for who you are in life, and you can't always listen to your community where you grew up, because sometimes you outgrow people, and you have to live your life, because in the end, you're the only one who's gonna have to live with decisions you made. So there's no good or bad in the decision. I think it's something you have to do for yourself. You have to process that yourself. And I can be against or for abortion. It doesn't matter. It's like, well, sorry.
No, that's perfect. For me, the crazy thing is I'm assuming it's always been this way, but the way in which people try to tell somebody else how to live their life is still absurd to me. But what I find interesting then with you mentioned, I wrote a couple of lines down, like this pain awakening that lies deep within. I don't need your absolution, kind of as we talked about, but going through these very vulnerable things, you have to be vulnerable in order to be honest with yourself. And I don't want to make it too personal, so if you don't want to answer this is fine. But can you give me an example of something you had to kind of figure your way through, and something that you kind of had to be honest with yourself about?
I can't find direct example for that. What was more like, for me personally, it's not like the lyrics are always about yourself, but it's more
Sure.
like, so it's my, but of course there are things in there that are from you, that you have experienced, of course. And for me it was always like, I think my pain, my own personal pain a little bit, was when growing up, that I didn't feel taken serious, not seen sometimes. And I think trying to please everybody, so and then in the end realizing I couldn't be that person anymore because it was harming myself. And I think in the end, just by taking my place where I needed to be, helped me grow as a person, to stand up for myself, and taking my place, not being afraid of being pushed away, but just taking that spot where I needed to be. And so that I think if that there's a certain pain there for me while growing up, but I think, and that maybe is a motivator for writing certain things, and knowing that people might not understand it, that people that that knew you at that time, but still taking that step forward for yourself, otherwise feeling being drowning or something. So that's the personal touch of that.
This is obviously, I don't know you know you well enough, but you seem a lot more relaxed in the last couple of years. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, totally. And it starts with don't caring about what people think anymore about yourself, about you as a person, and also thinking like, even if I make mistakes, I'm only human. It's not like you do things on purpose, and you learn from it, you grow from it. Only by mistakes you grow. So that's my motto nowadays. And I try to I've got a family. I need to be an example for them as well. Like also to show them my mistakes and talk about those kind of things, and hopefully that they see that it's okay to make mistakes. And so and now I'm things that haunted me in the past, and I think I became a more, how do you say it, not even stable, because I think I was always very stable in a way. I was never unstable in the way I was as a person, but more confident maybe to speak out and speak up for things that matter to me.
That's very good to hear. I have one last question. You're going back on tour next year.
Yes.
What is the anticipation? Because it's still, I don't know, almost 12 months away.
Yeah.
12 months away or something. So how do you build to that when you still have so much time? Is it kind of preparing the live show, everything? And
yeah, that's a lot of work. People don't always see how much work goes into that, but it takes a lot of time also to see what's technically possible with every venue, because every venue is different. Sometimes you play in really big venues, and sometimes it's a little bit less big, and then you have technical problems that you have to make everything fit, and everything takes time, and we need to have time also to let everything go a little bit of what we have been doing the last 11-12 months in a row, because we have been really working really hard to get it done and finished in October. And every time we thought, we're done for the summer. Oh, no, you've got interviews, you still have to do videos, photo shoots.
Yeah.
So I don't think I had a lot of free time since January, since the new year started. So except for a week here and there, but really at the most a few weeks, and otherwise constantly working actually for long days. So I'm really looking forward to have that time spent to prepare ourselves with a really amazing show for the next tour. And yeah, I'm looking forward to do that together with Robert.
Very quickly, what do you like to do outside of music? Is it just basic mom stuff?
What is basic mom stuff?
I don't know. I'm not a parent, but kind of, yeah, taking care of the kids or going on trips and whatever.
Oh, it's
making
all
sure
kinds of
everybody
stuff.
has lunch for school.
Yeah, but you know, those kind of things do fit, yeah, the profile of mom stuff. No, I love to play tennis. I'm an addict.
Okay.
If you find me anywhere, it's on a tennis court. So that's and with the family as well, because everybody plays tennis. And besides that, I really like to paint when I have time. And besides that, it's really yeah, trying to manage everything around the family and friends and having a normal life a little bit here and there. And sports, I love sports, other sports as well. So I'm a lot of times in the gym, those kind of things. Also to prepare myself every time again for a new tour, staying in shape.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So it's trying to keep those lungs operating.
Well,
Those
very
kind of
good to
things.
hear. Sharon, may I thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me.
No problem. Thank you very much for having me again.